Hello, everybody. I'm Lida, and this is my friend Merryl Hammond. We've been friends for many years. She's also a writer, and she left South Africa many years ago to come to immigrate to Canada, same as me leaving Iran, coming here. And she has very kindly agreed to do a little interview with me about one of my books, Leaving Iran, my Persian diaries. So thank you so much, Merryl.
Oh, thanks for the introduction. So as you said, Lida, your subtitle of this book, Leaving Iran, is My Persian Diaries. So I guess the first question is, are these excerpts truly from your teenage diaries?
Yes. I started writing a diary maybe when I was 12. So these diaries go from 12 to 16 years old. They were written in Persian because I was 12. I left Iran when I was 14. And so they were written in Persian. I chose excerpts from them and I translated them. I would say it's 95%, exactly what you would see in my diaries. Maybe 5% I've added something here or there just to give it context or make it more clear.
Exactly. So I'm looking on page 8, there's an how do I show this close up, actual excerpt in Persian, showing your own handwriting back then.
Yes.
Perfect. Now, if I asked you to tell us in a sentence or two what makes your diary particularly interesting, what would you say?
I would say it covers a time that was very tumultuous in Iran. It starts at a couple of years before the Islamic Revolution that happened in 1979.
Right.
And it carries to maybe 1980, 81. So it covers, well, I talk about my normal life, before the revolution in Shiraz where I lived. Then you can hear the stories of, demonstrations and things like that in the street for about 6 months, that goes on. And finally the regime changes. And then at that point, or just before the revolution, we leave Iran.
I'm just going to go back. The regime changes, the Shah.
Exactly. So the Shah leaves Iran and Khomeini arrives and the Islamic Republic of Iran is born. Okay. So because it covers that time, it can be interesting for people.
Yeah, very tumultuous, as you said. And your family, being Baha'is, how did that factor in?
So we actually left because we were Baha'is. The Baha'is have been persecuted from the beginning of its inception in Iran. But we knew that if the regime changed and the clergy came to power, they would have a free reign in doing even worse things than was happening before, and that Iran wouldn't be a safe country. My parents were concerned about our education. When we left Iran, we were hoping to go back in a couple of weeks. But when everything got worse and the regime changed, we never went back and we came to Canada.
Just to clarify for people who don't know, you say your parents were worried about your education. What's the situation about education of Baha'is?
Exactly. So right now, the Baha'i youth, when they graduate from high school, they're not allowed to enter university. They have to say what religion they believe in on their, registration. And if they say Baha'i, which they do, they're not allowed. They're not allowed to enter universities. So it's very sad. It's very unfortunate. The Baha'is have started their own open university as a result. But even those classes and those lessons can be raided and stopped, and their instructors put into prison. And so it's, even though they're trying to help themselves, that's not even allowed.
On this, the text on the back cover I found said a lot, and I wanted you just to read that for our audience, including the poem that you've published there.
All right. So this book is a compilation of my diary entries from when I was 12 to 16 years old in 1976 to 1980. The Islamic Revolution took place in 1979, and just months before that, my family left Iran for Canada because we were Baha'is and afraid of the persecution that would follow this regime change. This is also the story of immigration with all its challenges and joys. So this poem was written in Canada many years later. Actually, it was written in Montreal, so it could be 15, 20 years old. But it sort of could be interesting to look back at my time in Iran. The scent of saffron and rose water reminds me of my Persian past. The busy streets of the bazaar, the veil-clad ladies bargaining for the best price, the tree-lined streets of Shiraz, the entrance gate, Darwaze Quran, the garden of our house where the weeping willows cried, the large dining room where many a guest dined, the American school I went to where East met West and my heart was one.
Just to clarify that last line, your heart was one, meaning
when so my elementary school was an American school, so we learned both English and Persian, but it was set up by an American lady who was married to a Persian man. And when I learned English and when I read about, how people live in other countries, especially in the West, obviously, how women are treated there, how, there is no religious persecution, the freedom that exists, even, in terms of, as I said, women's issues and so on. I was aware that, there was much more freedom in the West. And I loved the English language as well.
Yeah.
I started reading books in English and so on. And so I always really looked forward to sometime living in the West.
Okay.
That was like a real desire of mine.
So although you were rooted in the East, you had this longing for the West?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. All right, now we're going to dive into the book a little bit, ask you to read a few brief extracts just to give us a taste. My first choice was from page 35, about when the revolution began.
Yes.
And
so this was August 12, 1978. This is during the tumultuous times. So the regime hasn't changed yet. There's just a lot of demonstrations, a lot of troublesome activities, people sabotaging things and just making a lot of trouble, as I say in the diary. Yesterday, they declared martial law in Esfahan. This doesn't affect us very much since we live in Shiraz, but these days the situation in Iran is very tense. For a few months now, even in Shiraz, mobs of people have been pouring into the streets and breaking doors and windows and setting fire to various places. I'm not sure why they are doing this and why no one can stop them. It's not a safe situation at all.
Then just turn a few pages, 38 to 39, about the rioting in Tehran.
Yes. This talks about why we left Iran and why many Baha'is left Iran before and after the revolution, because the leaving almost started a little bit before the revolution but continued consistently after the revolution, even until now, today.
Yeah.
The difficult situation for the Baha'is of Iran is the reason why my parents have applied for immigration to Canada. It's so that if the situation worsens, we can leave. I must say that my mother is the one who is pushing for immigration to Canada. She has a BA in English and speaks English fairly well. And whenever my parents travel to Europe, she is the one who takes care of everything. My dad, on the other hand, doesn't speak much English. He has a great attachment to Iran and is successful in business. He isn't that excited about leaving the country, but he realizes that the situation can take a turn for the worse at any time, and it's good to have options.
And if you'll just go back to this few lines here
Okay.
about what was happening to make your parents
Feel
consider
that way.
taking this huge
Sure.
leap.
So this is, September 8th, 1978. I have bad news. Due to the rioting in Tehran, 14 other cities have, and 14 other cities, thank you. So there's 15 cities with rioting. 12 people are dead. The government has banned public gatherings. But that hasn't stopped hundreds of thousands of demonstrators from taking to the street in Tehran and other cities in defiance to the ban. So they banned public gatherings, but people would still come into the streets in large numbers to demonstrate.
So it must have been extremely nerve-wracking for your parents to be watching all this.
Yes.
So your family got out of Iran, went to somewhere
London.
before, was London your first
first.
stop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're now in London, and
so we're in London, and the regime has changed because the regime changes in January of 79, and this entry is from March of 79. So things, I think, changed in ways that people didn't expect. What people expected of the revolution didn't necessarily come to be.
okay.
So one of the things I'm sure people did not expect was this idea that Mr. Khomeini has decreed that all the laws of Islam have to be followed to the letter. That means that starting tomorrow, all women have to wear headscarves. What a situation. I would find obeying this law so difficult. There is something about the compulsory nature of this law that really bothers me. Why should someone else get to decide whether I should cover my hair or not? What is wrong with how things were before? Supposedly, women's hair can tempt men, and it's safer for women and men if women cover their hair. I don't see the logic in that at all. Are men so weak-willed? Is hair so tempting? Yeah, the logic doesn't exist for me. Not only do women have to wear headscarves, but also they are not allowed to listen to Western or Persian pop music even, dance or sing in the public. My mother tells me that women now need the permission of their husbands to leave the country too. So there were many restrictions put on women. That was not supposed to be the case. But once, the power came into the hands of Khomeini and the clergy in Iran, they put a lot of restrictions on the lives of women.
And while we're on that point about headscarves, we're going to jump to your other book, Woman Life, Freedom. There's a poem in there, page 39, I thought you should read.
So this book consists of poems that I wrote after Mahsa Amini was killed because her headscarf was not proper, or her hijab was not properly on, and he died in custody of police. She died in the custody of police. And since the September of that year, I started listening to the news of the demonstrations that were happening because of that. And the women were really, angry and trying to change the situation and say that we don't need headscarves anymore and so on. And so the poems in this book are about that 1 year period of time. It's called I Say No. You want me to cover my hair. I say no. You say it's the sign of piety. I say no. You say it will protect me from harm. I say no. You say otherwise I'll excite men. I say no. You can't convince me to do something I don't want to do. You don't realize how strong I am. You have tried to put me down, but each time you see me rise. You fear me and my courage. You should. I'm determined and won't back down. I will continue this fight. Woman, life, freedom. So this is from the point of view of the women of Iran, because they showed a lot of courage in coming into the streets and demonstrating for the removal of hijab, and some actually died. So it was very, very tragic.
Thank you. Back to the main book. The last excerpt is from page 93, the very last page of the main section of the book. Page 93, Dreaming.
So it's August 23rd, 1980. I've taken my diary out after a long time and decided to write again. A few days ago, I was at the library and I saw a book titled To Be 70. This book was written in the format of a daily diary. I borrowed it and wondered to myself if this was something I could do one day with my diaries. But then again, I'm only 16. So that's a kind of a premonition.
Premonition, exactly. So here you are all these years
here
later.
We are.
And I guess the question is, now that your book has been published, your diaries, can you believe that the dreams of that 16-year-old girl have come true?
Yeah.
And that's a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much.
I know what it's like to get it through to completion. And I think on behalf of all of us who read your book, I would want to thank you for sharing those, often very personal, painful memories with us and allowing us to experience something of the Islamic Revolution through your eyes, through yours and your family's experiences. It was documented with such clarity and honesty. Thank you. And I saw on Amazon all the 5-star reviews that you're getting for your work. Congrats on that too. A few excerpts, if I may, from the reviews, just to inspire anyone who hasn't read your work. Somebody said, "This is a touching account of a refugee from a teenager's point of view. I really liked reading about life in Iran, the political, religious, social aspect of life in Iran. These are different people. Aspect of life in Iran through the eyes of a young girl. And then with all the current news around Iran, it was interesting to have an historic perspective." Somebody else said, "A gripping and heartfelt memoir chronicling a young girl's family's move from Iran during the revolution." Another, "The author's descriptive and enjoyable writing style makes it easy to become engrossed in the story, which is presented with honesty and offers a realistic glimpse into what life was like during this tumultuous time." Last one, "I highly recommend it to anyone looking for a memoir about family, resilience, and perseverance during difficult times."
Thank you, Merrill. Thank you for reading those. And I want to finish with a little funny story. My nephew, who was, I think at the time, 10 or 11, got a hold of this book and started reading it in the afternoon and just kept on reading and reading and reading till nighttime. And then when he was finished, he said to me, "But I want to know what happens next." so that was very interesting, that he was intrigued and he wanted to know. But I was very touched that at his age he would read this. And now,
is this your brother's son?
Yes, this is my brother's son. Yes, and he's a big reader, but still, it's such a different situation, different country, different times. But still, it interested him. Yeah.
That's cute.
And I would like to thank you, Merrill,
Oh,
for
you're
taking
welcome.
the time.
Just end with what's coming next for you.
Oh, well, the next book I'm working on is called Cancer Diaries, and they are diaries as well. I guess I like the diary
You
format
do?
because I was diagnosed with breast cancer a year and a half ago. And as I was going through the process of diagnosis and treatment, and the treatment went on for a year, it was quite extensive, I just kept a diary. And so I'm now publishing those. And I really hope that it will be helpful for all women, whether women, you know, first of all, to encourage women to go for screening. And second of all, not to be scared, because when cancer is detected early, it's very treatable. So it's a very hopeful book, and anyways, you can read more about it.
More to follow.
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for coming over.
It was fun to work on this together.
Thank you, thank you. Wonderful.